Let me take this opportunity right here at the outset to thank you for allowing me to do a different format here with the afternoon drive here on YouTube. I know some of you miss the more sophisticated is not the right word because I don't have a sophisticated setup, but maybe the more production polished that we were doing, where we showed other video clips and did other editing effects, and now we're basically just live in my backyard. I want to thank you for affording me the summer of doing this different format with so many things that I have going, because I don't just do political commentary. I really am a pastor. I lead a ministry. I have a staff that I have to oversee, and there's just other things going on right now. So thank you for affording me this different format. I appreciate it. I appreciate your comments. We did a monologue yesterday regarding that, hey, Tom Cruise looks like he was right about the psychotic, mind-altering drugs that were being given to kids in the form of things like Ritalin to control their ADD and their ADHD, that these were actually psychotic street drugs, and it's completely changing the personality of kids. And we talked about that yesterday, and one of you wrote in the comments section, and this was a brilliant observation: is there a correlation between the rise in medicating kids and the rise in school violence and school shootings? And I got thinking about that, because it's a logical step. If you watch any of the pharmaceutical commercials that we get treated to endlessly when watching anything on television, whether it's primetime, the news, sports, one of the things they always list are the potential side effects, which has been one of the things that I have actually used through the years to stay away from wanting to have any need for pharmaceuticals, because sometimes, honestly, the side effects to me look worse than whatever it is the pill is supposed to be treating. And a lot of those medications, one of the side effects is thoughts of depression or suicide. Thoughts of depression or suicide. Self-harm. Well, if thoughts of self-harm, suicide can be a side effect, what about thoughts of violence? What about rage? What about thoughts of homicide? So, kudos to one of you that thought of that, asked that question. That was great insight. So I enjoy this format, but we get back into the fall, I will be going back to the other, and again, refined is not the right way, but the more structured, polished format where it's been edited, it's not live, and we're splicing other things in. But thank you for affording me the opportunity to do it this way. Manchin caved. He caved. The man cave caved. The guy who was for over a year, being called an obstructionist to his own party, and he had to be primaried, but he's a man of principle. He's a man that reports to his people, not the president of the United States. He's from West Virginia, and he's for the people of West Virginia. And of course, the far left said he's for the coal companies. Whatever he was for, Chuck E. Cheese Schumer met his price. Because now he's going to give in, and he's going to let Biden have his Build Back Better, which means build us bankrupt. Which really means a grotesque, over-the-top spending beyond anything we have ever seen in this generation, that will be a Green New Deal wet dream fantasy come to life, which is absolutely going to affect everything. The price of our utilities, the availability of gas, and don't get me started on the dropping gas prices. I'm getting to that. So, Joe Manchin, the so-called principled Democrat. Had his private little meeting with Chuck E. Cheese Schumer, one of those backroom smoke-filled deals where the machine went to work, and he is now in lockstep, and he is going to get out of the way for the Biden agenda to make its way through Congress and the Senate and to be passed. And all of this happening on the day that we find out, yes, we're in a recession. Although Biden, who for days building up to this, first he tried to downplay it. We don't know that's going to happen. Then there was the redefining of terms. Well, it could be a technical recession, but not a real recession. Today, after it is announced that we have had the second straight quarter of loss, 0.9%, which means almost 1% loss in the gross domestic product, that's 2 quarters back to back, which by economic definition is recession. Today, Joe Biden hands out a new talking point, which CNN, PMSNBC, and the rest of the lying legacy corporate corrupt mainstream media will run with. Well, it's no surprise. Of course that was going to happen. That was literally what he said. When he was first asked, Mr. President, do you fear that there will be a recession? What even makes you think, Jack, there could be a recession? Oh, I don't know. All of this out of control spending and artificially pumping money into the economy. Not a good thing. Even Joe Manchin initially, one of the reasons he said that he didn't want to, quote, vote on the president's Green Deal agenda was we need a pause. We need a pause. A lot of things have hit us. Inflation's coming. Everybody knows the inflation's coming. And this is Joe Manchin talking. He said even his Democratic colleagues all said they knew inflation was coming. That when all that money, the trillions of dollars that during the lockdown they artificially pumped into the economy, into the stock market, the largest transfer of wealth in history. They knew when that funny money actually began to hit the economy, it would trigger inflation. I've been talking about it. Even when President Trump was in the final weeks of his administration, all of this money that was being handed out, school districts being given millions of dollars to properly ventilate their schools so that they could reopen safely. I said, as that money actually begins to hit the economy, as contractors actually get hired to come in and do this work, as that money actually starts making its way through, and the American people who are not allowed to go to work, we did get a pittance. Now, the only reason I supported giving the American people money, it's really theirs. If you're a taxpayer paying into the system, but then you're told you can't go to work, you must stay home, you're non-essential. Yeah, I think at that point we owe it to give you back your money so that you can take care of your family. But all of this corporate bailout, which by the way, most of these corporations made record profits during the lockdown, especially the big box stores that were allowed to stay open. And we made Amazon an absolute behemoth, which really somebody might ought to take a look at. Maybe it's time to break them up a little bit. Amazon actually runs its own healthcare centers now. Maybe not in your area, but they're coming, and I have actually seen them, and that's a little scary. Amazon, Big Pharma, all working together, which means they're working against you, which means don't just look at Russia as a place that has rich billionaire oligarchs. We got them right here. And trust me, Jeff Bezos and these guys, these CEOs of Big Pharma snap their fingers. Don't think for a moment that elected officials don't come running. First with their hands out, looking for that next, campaign donation. And then ready and willing to do their bidding to further their agenda. So, Manchin Caves, what we're getting, and here's the thing, you read some of the articles. I went online and I read The Atlantic and some of these other leftist publications. They're all, of course, praising this. They're all, of course, today singing the wonderful accolades of Joe Manchin. Apparently, he's no longer a West Virginian rube. But they'll all talk about, wow, this is generational and what it's going to do for the environment. But they all basically said the same thing. This is so mammoth, we can't even describe it. In other words, it's like the Affordable Care Act. We're going to have to pass the bill so that you can find out what's in it. It's going to take us a generation to figure out how badly we are about to literally get financially raped, the destruction of middle-class family, the middle-class income, and the destruction of the fossil fuel industry. But hey, you're going to get a tax credit if you buy an electric car. You don't have anywhere to charge it. And unless you've got a fossil fuel-based energy grid, you're depending on the wind and solar panels to recharge 100 million electric cars. Good luck. So, don't know what it was that Manchin received as his payoff. Whatever it is, it had to be substantial because it obviously had to replace whatever the coal industry does for him. So, Manchin's now on board because he's a principal and all. It was never that I was against it. I just thought we needed a pause. And I guess now the pause is over. Biden lying on there's not going to be any recession, Jack. And now that it's here, well, of course there's a recession. And this is what he said. The economy came back so fast, so strong under my administration that a recession is a way of the economy catching up with itself. That's how they're going to spin this. You're supposed to have stupid written on your forehead, and you're supposed to go, wow, he's like an economic genius. I never realized how good I had it. It's so much better under Biden than it ever was under Trump. Here's what an abject failure the January 6th hearings were. You've got Merrick Garland talking about he's actually considering charging the former president. Oh, really? Really? President's out there enjoying a golf tournament right now. Kind of a return to his life before he was president, and literally all of the people that used to love him on, you know, what we would call Hollywood and liberalism and the elites, you know, they loved him then when he was the billionaire playboy that they could get money from. Well, he's kind of, today anyways, having kind of a little taste of that again. He's playing out on the LIV Pro Presidential Golf Tour. So, good for him. Good for him. We're going to charge the president. It's another distraction. It's another circus show. When we've got absolute evidence of what Hunter Biden was doing and now direct links that his father was in the know, involved in receiving money from Ukraine oligarchs. Tell me again why we're in war in Ukraine? We're paying the oligarchs back. $54 billion we sent over there. We don't know where the money went. We're sending them all types of military equipment, which they are in turn selling on the black market. But hey, Sean Penn went on Chris Cuomo's podcast and talked about we need to really get behind and help Ukraine. Sean Penn is without a doubt at this point now dumber than even Alyssa Milano. And I didn't think that was possible out there in Hollyweird. But Sean Penn is now officially dumber than Alyssa Milano and Carl Meathead Reiner. I mean, he is just an absolute stooge, dupe, buffoon, and a bonehead. Because all he's doing now is shilling for Zelensky, who himself is a war criminal. Who himself is now just, generals, colonels, reporters are just now disappearing in the middle of the night because they were, quote, traitors to the cause. There are American journalists like Glenn Greenwald being banned by Ukraine, Tulsi Gabbard being banned by Ukraine. And you know who's cheering all this? Liberals in our country. They like censorship. They like dissenting voices to their own voice being snuffed, being snubbed out. They love this. Remember, totalitarianism always comes in under the guise of liberalism. Always, always, always. Everything they told us Donald Trump was going to do and never did, we're now watching Joe Biden and the libloons go absolutely nuts with it. So they're going to get their Green Deal, environmental, raping the economy through Congress now because Joe Manchin caved, bought out. Biden lying through his teeth about the economy.
But gas prices are going down, and even some anti-Biden media outlets are now saying that Biden has done a good job. He's actually sprang into action.
Midterms are coming. So we're going to deplete our strategic oil reserve and artificially lower gas prices. Watch how fast they go up the day after the election. Not to mention, in this sweeping new legislation that Joe Manchin is now on board with and going to vote for, one of the things that, well, there's some good things in there, like Medicare will be able to actually now negotiate with pharmaceutical companies the price of drugs. That could have been its own standalone piece of legislation. Because I do understand that Americans need a break when it comes to healthcare costs. So I don't have a problem with an element like that, but that could have been its own standalone piece of legislation. It purposely got packaged into this monstrosity. But there's also things like price controls and other things in there. And you know what happens every time price controls are enacted? Catastrophe. Look what happened in New York City when they effectively said there will be rent control. What happened? Buildings either became absolute slumlord dumps or they were bought up and privatized in such a way that the average person couldn't afford to live there if they wanted to. Biden and his team, this ilk, they're hitting that great reset. Soon and very soon, your cash is going to go bye-bye. You'll have to have a digitized passport, not only to prove if you are up on whatever the latest mandated love potion number 9 is, but your currency, your credit cards, access to your bank accounts, your driver's license, your actual passport to leave the country, all of it will be tied to digital ID. And none of this has anything to do with a epidemic, pandemic, or a whatever ick. It's all about the loss of your freedom and their control. Don't fall for the falling gas prices. The only thing that we can hope right now is that with the recession officially being announced, inflation being what it is, that the real people of West Virginia actually let Joe Manchin know, don't you do it, don't you do it, don't you dare do this. And make sure you keep the pressure on. We have got to make sure that what happens in November really is a conservative tsunami. And then we need some real investigations to happen into Fauci, into Hunter. And since Merrick Garland, you're so jonesing to arrest a president, you're looking at the wrong one. You need to look at the one that is currently occupying 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. He thinks he rides Amtrak. I'm talking about Dementia Jobama Biden.